I stood in the lobby of that beautiful Marriott hotel in San Diego, watching my parents and my sister Ernestina check in at the front desk. The ocean breeze drifted through the open doors, carrying the promise of a perfect family vacation. But something felt wrong. When the receptionist handed over the room keys, there were only 2 sets. My name was nowhere on the reservation list. That familiar ache of being forgotten crept into my chest, but this time something different stirred inside me. A strange calmness. Ernestina turned around with that smile I knew too well. Before I continue, let me know where you are watching from today. Drop a comment below. Hit that like button and subscribe if you have not already. Stick with me until the end because what happened next changed everything I thought I knew about family and my own worth. My name is Marcus and I am 34 years old. I work as a software engineer in Seattle and I have built a good life for myself. But to understand what happened in that hotel lobby, you need to know where I come from. I grew up in Portland, Oregon in a 2-story house in the suburbs. It was a nice neighborhood, the kind where kids rode bikes on the sidewalks and neighbors waved at each other. From the outside, we looked like the perfect American family, but inside those walls, I learned early on that love was not distributed equally. When I was 5 years old, my sister Ernestina was born. My parents called her their little miracle. They had been told after having me that another pregnancy was unlikely, so when my mother found out she was expecting again, they treated it like a gift from heaven. And from that moment forward, everything changed. I remember my 10th birthday clearly. My mother had promised me a party with my friends from school. I had been counting down the days for weeks. But 2 days before Ernestina caught a mild cold, she had a runny nose and a slight fever, nothing serious. Yet my parents cancelled my party entirely. My father said they could not risk having other children around while Ernestina was sick. My mother promised they would make it up to me the following year. They never did. My bedroom was the smallest room in the house, tucked away at the end of the hallway. The furniture was hand-me-down stuff from my grandparents. Meanwhile, Ernestina had the largest bedroom with brand new everything. A canopy bed, a desk with a computer shelves full of toys. When I asked why, my mother simply said that Ernestina needed more space because she was the baby. Throughout school, I worked hard. I got straight A grades, made the honor roll every semester, and earned a spot on the varsity debate team. When I brought home my report cards, my parents would glance at them and say something like, "That is nice, Marcus." Then they would turn their attention back to whatever Ernestina was doing. But when Ernestina managed to pass a math test she had been struggling with, they took her out for ice cream to celebrate her effort. I left home at 18 with a scholarship to study computer science at the University of Washington. The day I moved to Seattle, my parents did not drive me. They did not help me pack my things into the old car I had bought with money from my part-time job. They were busy taking Ernestina back to school shopping. She was 13 then, and apparently her need for new clothes was more important than saying goodbye to their son. I worked my way through college, juggling classes and part-time jobs. I graduated with honors and landed my first real job at a tech company. Over the years, I climbed the ladder. I became a senior software engineer. I bought my own apartment with a view of Puget Sound. I got a nice car. I built a life entirely on my own without any help from my family. But despite everything, I kept trying. I called home on holidays. I sent birthday gifts. I flew down to Portland for Thanksgiving when I could. I kept hoping that maybe someday they would see me. Really see me. 3 months before the San Diego trip, my mother called me. Her voice was unusually warm, and I felt a flutter of hope in my chest. "Marcus," she said, "your father and I are planning a trip to San Diego for our 40th wedding anniversary. We want the whole family together for this special occasion." I could not believe it. After all these years, they were including me in something important. I immediately started making arrangements. I requested a week off from work, turning down the opportunity to lead a major project because this felt more important. I booked my flight from Seattle to San Diego, which was not cheap during peak season. When my mother mentioned that she would handle the hotel reservations for everyone, I was touched. She asked me to contribute $500 for my share of the accommodations, and I transferred the money without hesitation. For the first time in a long time, I let myself believe that things might be different. The flight from Seattle to San Diego took about 2.5 hours. I spent most of it looking out the window, imagining how the week would unfold. Maybe we would have dinner together overlooking the ocean. Maybe my father would finally ask about my job. Maybe Ernestina and I could find some common ground after all these years. I landed in the early afternoon and took an Uber to the Marriott that my mother had told me about. It was a beautiful property, right near the beach, the kind of place that made you feel like you were on a real vacation. When I walked into the lobby, I spotted my family immediately. They had driven down from Portland and arrived a few hours before me. My nephew Brody saw me first. He was 4 years old, and unlike the rest of my family, he had always been genuinely happy to see me. He ran across the lobby and threw his arms around my legs. "Uncle Marcus, you came," he squealed. I picked him up and hugged him tight. "Of course I came, buddy." My parents and Ernestina walked over with Derek, my brother-in-law, trailing behind them. There were brief hugs and stiff hellos. Then we all moved toward the front desk to get our room keys. That was when everything fell apart. The receptionist smiled politely as my father gave his name. She typed something into her computer and then handed over 2 sets of key cards. I waited for her to produce a 3rd set, but she did not. My father took the keys and turned to distribute them. I watched as he gave 1 set to Ernestina and Derek, keeping the other for himself and my mother. I stood there, empty-handed. "Excuse me," I said to the receptionist. "There should be a 3rd room under that reservation, for Marcus." She checked her computer again and shook her head apologetically. "I am sorry, sir. I only have 2 rooms booked under this name. Would you like me to check availability for an additional room?" I turned to my mother. "Mum, what is going on? Where is my room?" She would not look at me. Her eyes darted to the floor, to the walls, anywhere but my face. "We thought you might want to make your own arrangements," she mumbled, "since you live so far away and all." Before I could respond, Ernestina stepped forward. She had that look on her face, the one she always wore when she was about to say something cruel. "We reserved rooms for me, my husband, and my child," she announced loudly. "We are the real family here. You are just... you." The words hit me like a punch to the stomach. I looked at Derek, who was smirking beside her. "Maybe you can find a hostel nearby," he added. "I heard they are affordable." I turned to my father, hoping he would say something. "Defend me." "Tell Ernestina she was out of line." But he just stood there, staring at the ground, refusing to meet my eyes. My mother tried to smooth things over in her usual way. "Honey, you are single. You do not need a big room anyway. We thought you would understand." I thought about the $500 I had sent. "Wait," I said slowly. "What happened to the money I gave you for my share of the hotel?" Ernestina laughed. "That was for our room upgrade. Mum said you would be happy to contribute to the family trip." I felt like I had been slapped. Not just because of the money, though, that stung, but because I finally understood with perfect clarity what I had been denying for 34 years. I was not part of this family. I never had been. I noticed other guests in the lobby glancing our way. Some had stopped what they were doing to watch the scene unfold. The humiliation burned, but beneath it, something else was rising. Not anger, not despair, something quieter, something like clarity. Standing there in that hotel lobby, memories I had tried to bury came flooding back. I remembered my college graduation. I had worked so hard to get there, and I had hoped my parents would be proud enough to come. But they did not show up. When I called to ask where they were, my mother said Ernestina had a date with her boyfriend. The same Derek standing in front of me now, and they did not want her to be alone. My graduation was not important enough. I remembered the day I got my first major promotion. I was so excited that I called home immediately to share the news. My mother listened for about 30 seconds before interrupting me. "That is nice, honey, but guess what? Ernestina just got engaged. We are so thrilled." She talked for 20 minutes about wedding plans and never once came back to my news. I remembered last year when I was in a car accident. It was not serious, but I had to spend 2 nights in the hospital for observation. I texted my family to let them know. Not a single one of them called to check on me. Not one. The pattern was so clear now. I had spent my entire life giving to people who would never give back. I had been begging for scraps of affection from people who had none to spare for me. But standing there surrounded by strangers in that hotel lobby, something shifted inside me. The familiar pain was there, but it was muted now, overshadowed by a strange sense of peace. I was tired. Not angry tired, just done. I took a deep breath and looked at each member of my family in turn. My mother, who could never quite meet my eyes. My father, who had never once stood up for me. Ernestina with her smug expression and her cruel words. Derek, who seemed to enjoy my humiliation. Then I spoke, and my voice was calmer than I expected. "You know what? You are absolutely right, Ernestina. You are the real family. And I have been fooling myself for 34 years thinking I was part of it." I turned to my parents. Thank you for making it crystal clear where I stand. I will not bother you anymore. I pulled out my phone and began cancelling every plan I had made for this trip. The dinner reservation I had made at a nice restaurant for the anniversary celebration. The whale-watching tour I had booked thinking we could do it together. I did it all right there in front of them. And about that $500 I added putting my phone away. Consider it my farewell gift to the real family. Ernestina's expression changed. For the first time she looked uncertain. She had expected me to plead, to argue, to do what I had always done, and accept whatever crumbs they offered. My calmness confused her. "Marcus, wait," my mother started. But I was already walking away. I did not turn around. I did not look back. I walked out of that hotel lobby and into the San Diego sunshine. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I could breathe. I found another hotel, a boutique place in La Jolla, that was actually nicer than the Marriott. I checked in, went up to my room, and turned off my phone. I did not want to hear from them. Not yet. Maybe not ever. That evening, I walked along the beach as the sun set over the Pacific. The sky turned orange and pink and purple, and I watched the waves roll in and out. I thought about my life, my real life back in Seattle. I had a good job. I had friends who actually cared about me. I had my health, my apartment, my savings. I had built all of that myself without any help from the people who were supposed to love me. So why had I spent so many years chasing their approval? Why had I kept going back to people who made it clear over and over again that I did not matter to them? I did not have answers yet. But for the first time, I was asking the right questions. I found a seafood restaurant near the water and treated myself to a nice dinner. Grilled fish, a glass of wine, a view of the ocean. I ate slowly, savoring every bite, enjoying the silence. No one was there to make cutting remarks about my choices. No one was there to remind me that I was less than. It was peaceful in a way I had not experienced in a long time. After dinner, I finally turned my phone back on. The notifications exploded across my screen. 47 missed calls, 23 text messages, all from my parents and Ernestina. I did not read a single one. I did not listen to any voicemails. I simply turned the phone back off and went to sleep. The next morning, I woke up to sunlight streaming through the windows of my hotel room. I ordered room service, ate breakfast on my balcony overlooking the ocean, and tried to figure out what to do with my week. That was when my phone rang with a call from my Aunt Meredith. Aunt Meredith was my mother's younger sister. She was 54 years old and had always been different from the rest of my family. When I was growing up, she was the one who remembered my birthdays. She was the one who came to my high school graduation when my parents could not be bothered. She was the only person in my extended family who had ever made me feel seen. I answered the call. "Marcus," she said, her voice heavy with emotion. "I heard what happened at the hotel. I am so sorry. How did you hear about it? Your mother called me last night crying. But I want you to know that I am on your side. I have always been on your side." We talked for a while, and then she told me something that stopped me cold. "There is more you should know," she said. "Something happened last night after you left." I listened as she described the evening my family had without me. After I walked out, they went to dinner as planned. It was supposed to be the big anniversary celebration at an upscale restaurant downtown, but the atmosphere was tense. My absence hung over the table like a storm cloud. Ernestina tried to act like nothing was wrong, but Derek started drinking heavily. By the time the main course arrived, he was on his fourth glass of whiskey. And then he and Ernestina started arguing. It began with small jabs. Derek complained about how much Ernestina spent on clothes. Ernestina snapped back about how little he contributed to their household. The argument escalated, voices rising, other diners starting to stare. And then Derek said something that changed everything. In his drunken state, he blurted out that he was having an affair. He had been seeing another woman for almost a year, and the only reason he stayed with Ernestina was because of the financial support she got from my parents. He called her a spoiled princess who could not survive without mommy and daddy's money. Ernestina broke down completely. She started sobbing right there in the restaurant, mascara running down her face, the picture of a perfect life crumbling in front of everyone. My parents sat there in shock, their 40th anniversary dinner turning into a disaster. And little Brody, my 4-year-old nephew, got so scared by his parents fighting that he started crying and asking for me. He kept saying, "Uncle Marcus, where is Uncle Marcus?" over and over again. But that was not all, Aunt Meredith continued. In his anger, Derek revealed more secrets. He told my parents that Ernestina had been lying to them for years. She had been borrowing money from friends and family under false pretenses. She had exaggerated her expenses, told my parents she needed extra money for Brody, when really she was using it to maintain a lifestyle she could not afford. The perfect daughter, the golden child, was a fraud. My parents were devastated, Aunt Meredith said. For the first time in their lives, they saw Ernestina for who she really is, and they realized that they spent 34 years ignoring the wrong child. She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was gentle. "You were always the good one, Marcus. I am so sorry I did not speak up sooner." I sat there on my hotel balcony looking out at the ocean, processing everything she had told me. I waited to feel something, satisfaction maybe, or vindication, after all the truth about Ernestina had finally come out. But I did not feel any of that. There was no joy in knowing that my sister's life was falling apart. There was no triumph in my parents' pain. All I felt was a quiet confirmation that I had made the right choice. Walking away had been the right thing to do. I decided to stay in San Diego for the rest of the week. But instead of the family vacation, I had imagined I created my own experience. I visited the San Diego Zoo and spent hours wandering through the exhibits, marveling at animals I had only seen in pictures. I toured the USS Midway Museum and learned about naval history while walking the decks of that massive aircraft carrier. I explored the Gaslamp Quarter, ducking into shops and restaurants, enjoying the energy of the neighborhood. One evening, I found myself at a rooftop bar downtown. I struck up a conversation with a group of people around my age, strangers, who knew nothing about my history or my family drama. They were just regular people enjoying a night out. We talked about travel and music and the best tacos in San Diego. For a few hours, I was just Marcus. Not the forgotten son, not the overlooked brother, just a guy having a good time. It felt liberating. Aunt Meredith flew down to San Diego to see me. We met for lunch at a restaurant overlooking the harbour, and for the first time in years, I had a real conversation with a family member. She told me stories about my mother that I had never heard. She explained some of the family dynamics that had shaped who my parents became. She did not make excuses for their behaviour, but she helped me understand it. And then she said something that stayed with me. "You have always been enough, Marcus. Their inability to see your worth says nothing about you and everything about them." On my last day in San Diego, I received a text from Aunt Meredith. She asked if I would be willing to see my parents and Ernestina. They wanted to apologize, and she wanted to know if she could tell them where I was staying. I thought about it for a long time. Part of me wanted to refuse. Part of me wanted to leave San Diego without ever seeing them again. But another part of me knew that I needed some kind of closure. I told her yes. They came to my hotel that afternoon. My mother's eyes were red and puffy from crying. My father looked older than I had ever seen him. Ernestina stood behind them, her face swollen, her usual confidence completely gone. My mother spoke first. "Marcus, I am so sorry. We were wrong. We have been wrong for so long." My father cleared his throat. "I am sorry, son. We failed you." I looked at Ernestina. She opened her mouth, closed it, and then just shook her head, tears streaming down her cheeks. Her marriage was over. Her carefully constructed image had collapsed. For the first time in her life, she had nothing to say. I let them finish. I did not interrupt. I did not yell or argue or list all the ways they had hurt me over the years. I just listened. And then I spoke. "I appreciate you coming here. I really do. But an apology does not erase 34 years. I need time. And more importantly, I need to see change. Not just words, actions, consistency. Proof that this is not just guilt talking." I paused. "I am not closing the door completely, but I am not opening it wide either. You will have to earn my trust, and that is going to take a long time." They left without argument. I think they understood that they had no right to expect more. When I got back to Seattle, I made an appointment with a therapist. It was time to deal with all the childhood wounds I had been carrying. The sessions were hard at first, digging up memories I had tried to bury. But slowly I started to heal. I focused on the relationships that actually mattered. My friends in Seattle who had always been there for me, my colleagues who respected my work, Aunt Meredith who called me every week just to check in. I even started dating. Her name was Lila, and I met her at a photography workshop. I had taken up photography as a new hobby, something just for me. She had warm eyes and an easy laugh, and when I told her about my family, she listened without judgment. 6 months after San Diego, Ernestina texted me. Derek had moved out. The divorce was finalized. She was living alone with Brody now, trying to figure out how to be a single mother. For the first time in her life, she understood what it felt like to be on her own, to not have someone taking care of everything. to face the world without a safety net. She sent me a long message apologizing for everything. She admitted that she had been cruel and selfish. She said she finally understood how much she had taken for granted. I read her message. I did not respond right away. I was not ready. Maybe someday I would be, but that would be my choice to make on my own timeline. I learned something important through all of this. Sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself is walk away from the people who refuse to see your worth. It is not about revenge or making them pay. It is about recognizing that you deserve better. Family is not just about blood. Family is about the people who choose to love you, support you, and treat you with respect. Those are the people worth keeping close, and you cannot force anyone to value you. You can only choose to value yourself. A year later, I still have not fully reconciled with my parents and Ernestina. Maybe I will someday, maybe I will not. But for the first time in my life, that decision is mine to make, and that is what true freedom feels like. So if you are out there right now feeling invisible in your own family, remember this. You do not have to beg for a seat at a table that was never meant for you. Sometimes the best thing you can do is build your own table. And trust me, the right people will find their way to sit with you. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever felt overlooked or undervalued by the people who were supposed to love you the most? How did you handle it? Drop your story in the comments below. I read every single one, and your experience might help someone else who is going through the same thing. If this story touched your heart, please give it a like. It helps more than you know. And if you are not subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you do not miss any future stories. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it today. You never know who might be struggling in silence. Thank you so much for watching and for being part of this community. I am grateful for each and every one of you. Take care of yourselves, value your worth, and remember that you are enough exactly as you are. Until next time.